You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are these things that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that's trying to make your life better. So we love you for kind of who you are, as long as you're not horribly evil. But if you're evil, you can learn to not be evil on the Chris Voss Show. So be sure to refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, all those crazy places on the internet. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about some different things about hormones. I've had some interesting things that have gone on with my hormones over the years. We'll get into some of that with testosterone replacement therapy, and of course, what women go through with their issues with hormones, and of course, as they age, menopause and stuff. So we're going to be talking to Dr. Edward Eckert, Dr. Edward Eckert today about some of the different things on what you can do to make sure you're staying balanced in life, in the brain and the chemicals and all that stuff, because we're just one big meat package combobulation of hormones. I think that's a scientific term they use. Maybe not. Anyway, Dr. Eckert has been working in the field of women's health and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy for over 30 years before launching Hormonify. He became board certified in OBGYN by the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology in 1988. He is trained at Emory University, University of Florida, New York University's affiliated hospital, and is a graduate of the Medical College of Wisconsin. He established and founded Menopause Institute in 1994 and dedicated years of research into investigating the treatment of menopause and its sequences, I guess. I'm missing the Latin that he's got down here. He founded Hormonify.com in order to expand the already successful prescribing of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Welcome to the show, Dr. Eckert. How are you?
Thanks for inviting me. Nice to be here.
Pleasure to have you as well, and thanks for coming. I've got a lot of questions for you, but before we get into that, give us any .coms, any social media you want people to find out more about you.
Well, the best place to go is to hormonify.com because we have information there. It's on the newsletter section. I wrote about 25 articles to basically help people understand terminology and the basis of what we do and why we're different and how it works.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what you do there. What are some of the different products you're doing and ways that you're helping, I believe, both men and women when it comes down to it. Is that correct? Do I understand?
Yeah, we have Hormonify for men as well. We found that we're treating the women aspect of a relationship, and they go back home and the poor guy is not able to do what he has to do. So therefore they bring in their husbands, boyfriends, and it becomes quite a party. So what we really do differently is that I spent about 10 years researching the whole aspect of what it takes to balance a woman's hormones. What we learned in residency and medical school was absolutely incorrect in my experience. We were taught that Premarin or estrogen was the basis of hormone treatment. As it turned out, that's completely fallacious. I did research into every article that was written about Premarin and found that indeed there was no real good research study to support what they were saying. So that was an eye-opener for me about the pharmaceutical industry and how they were selling things, and really what they were doing is marketing without adequate research. So what I learned over the years is that the marketing aspect of the pharmaceutical industry is really what they call research. They research into marketing. So I had to redo all of the preliminary studies for me to understand if I give X amount of hormone to a woman in this vehicle, what's going to be the blood level? That was the thing that was never done. So it took me about 1,000 women over about 10 years to say, I'm going to give this method of delivery, whether it be a pill, suppository, a troche, which is a highly technical gummy bear, whatever it was, what is the distribution into the blood, into the organs in 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. Do the whole work so that we can go ahead and establish a program that not only works, but is also economically efficient. So that was my approach to it. I started really doing it heavy in 1996, and I started researching via patient clinical studies and came to the formulations that we more or less use today in about 2002, 2003. So we have literally tens of thousands of patients all over the world. And our point at this juncture, we are now looking at becoming a completely national company. We're finishing up our proposal to the HHS to help us study further the ramifications of our program, because our preliminary studies show that we basically eliminate stage 2, 3, and 4 breast cancer. We have 0 in 30 years. We have no osteoporosis, no related fractures, 0. We have 0 uterine cancers. We have minimal heart disease progression. So all of these things are due to the proper balancing of the hormones, including the 4 main groups of hormones that we utilize.
And when do you need to start making sure your hormones are balanced? Is there a certain age you need to start making this preparation?
That's a great question, because people think that there is distinct stages in a woman's hormonal life. In reality, I see problems that occur, could be from adolescent years that progress onto the young reproductive years, that progress onto the woman in her 40s, progress onto the woman in the 50s. There's a trend. And the trend is the ratios of hormones that exist. We had a little blip in the culture because everybody was put on birth control pills for everything. And as Elon Musk says, that really created quite a problem in our water supply, which he's correct. It also provided a big problem with the boost in breast cancer, because it's basically an estrogen-dominant treatment regimen. So we really are moved away from treating symptoms, masking them with birth control pills, and getting to the etiology, not the symptomatology, but the cause of the problems that we see. And we have about 26 symptoms related to hormone deficiency. Some people don't even realize they're related to their hormones. For example, anxiety, depression gets worse. Weight distribution gets worse. All related to hormones. So osteoporosis is all related to the hormones. If we can cure 100%, then the premise is that we absolutely know what causes osteoporosis. And it's not a deficiency of the chemicals that the pharmaceutical industry wants to sell you. For example, antidepressives. Now we know for a fact that 90% of the time, they don't make you less depressed. You've heard about, we have 60 million people on antidepressants. We have more depression in America than we've ever had. So therefore, that's not a cure. So I look at things a little bit different. It's not a cure. So what we've done is did the studies and then decided the best method, the most consistent method, is something called the troche. The troche has been around for 150 years. We perfected it. We changed the compilation of the gel so that it lasts longer in the mouth. It does, but you put in the cheek here or here, and we do it twice a day dosing, because that's what you need to have even levels throughout the 24 hours. And it absorbs directly into the bloodstream. It's efficient, predictable, and we are very happy with that method. We also have suppository. We rarely use the pills, because the pills go through the stomach, into the portal vein, into the liver, and you don't know what you get.
Because it'll eat it up. I never really worried about hormones most of my life, and I think in my 50s I started lifting, going to the gym regularly. I changed my life and improved it. Quit drinking, and I couldn't build muscle. I'd have like little injuries, not really injuries, but I pull shit. And I for 3 years I worked my ass off, and I couldn't build muscle. I could build some muscle, but I would just hit a wall, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Everything's still working in the bedroom department. And so, I'm just like, well, I'm just getting older. And then I was going through, I didn't realize at the time, but I was going through brain fog. I'd wake up, and I would literally feel like I was crawling into bed 5 minutes, 10 minutes later. Like I would crawl into bed and go, what did I do today? Like, what the fuck? I swear to God, I was crawling in this bed 5 minutes ago, and now I'm crawling back into it to go to sleep. And, there's the podcast and all the shit that I do. That's proof of, I could at least go like, well, okay, I guess I did some of this, but like, there was like a million things that I wanted to do that I never got done. And And so I went in. Finally, we'd had enough people on the show. They're like, "You should check your testosterone," and I went in and had it checked. And turns out I wasn't too bad. I was like 400, but my free testosterone was in the toilet. So I had like
actually 400 is pretty low for a young guy like you. I assume you're about what, 48?
I'm 57.
I know, I'm
57.
kidding. Yeah, you look 48. So that's a very common issue. The most common complaint we have in our male division is going to be fatigue and poor muscle development.
Yeah.
So not ED, because most of the guys we treat are in their 40s and low 50s. Okay. So, but a very interesting compilation here is that your adrenal gland is probably shot. Foggy thinking, fatigue. The adrenal gland is a precursor to the male hormone testosterone. So most people don't understand this. Even urologists I speak to, they don't even understand that you got to check the adrenal gland. Why? Because the adrenal gland will burn out if the testosterone goes low. It tries to produce more and more testosterone. And by that case, they burn out. Adrenal gland is extremely important for your immune system function. It's very, very important in establishing, balancing in almost every aspect, including brain function. So if you're having fatigue, whoever's listening, fatigue, and your doctor says your testosterone is normal, did he check the adrenal gland function? Does he even know how to check the adrenal gland function? Most of them don't even know how to check it. It's ignored because there's not a lot of pharmaceuticals for the adrenal gland. There's no motivation to study it and do what has to be done. Because we use supplementation by top physician quality companies, can replace and show the levels going up. It's amazing. You can actually quantify through Hormonify your levels of adrenal gland function and testosterone. By the way, your level of 400 for a young guy like you is extremely low.
Really? Okay.
Yes, it's extremely low.
That's wild. So, they told me it was kind of okay, but the free problem was the problem. The free.
That's again, pre. We'll talk about pre in a second. Okay. But that's the reason why doctors who are not properly trained just look at the quote normals on the right side. Like when you get a lab test, your lab value is 420. What is normal? They give a range. Oh, you're normal. I see that all the time. I had two today. Two patients went to the gynecologist. Oh, it's normal. Normal for who? Normal for someone 70, normal for someone 38, where in their cycle. So they don't know enough to know what the value should be. That would took me 10 years to figure out. So case after case after case, whoever's out there listening, your gynecologist is going to tell you it's normal. Your family doctors say it's normal because they don't even know what normal should be. They just look on the range. In your case, it's within the range of men in America.
Yeah.
Even if they're 90. So therefore, you're in the range. But actually, for a guy your age, with your activity level, when you're working out in the gym, you need much more.
Yeah. They try and keep me my clinic tries to keep me in the 800s right now.
Total is not as important as free. What people don't realize is total is already bound up. So when you give yourself, let's say, an injection of testosterone, it's going to be free for a while. And that free will really spike up. But the free is what's bioavailable to the cells in your body. Not the bound up ones. That's bound up by the sex bonding globulin, which you don't measure. A lot of doctors measure. I don't know why they measure them. It's a protein. But basically what's free and available, that includes for women too. What's available to your testosterone is what you need to focus on, not your quote total.
And so within 3 days it usually takes, they shoot it in the butt. So it takes like about 3 days to fully get in your system. And within 3 days, I started to wake up from brain fog.
Good.
And I remember the first Monday I was doing 3 podcasts, and I came out of the first podcast, and we usually do them at 11 a.m. Mountain. And I came out of the first podcast, and I was like, why is it not like Thursday right now? Like, why is it still fucking Monday? Like, I couldn't figure out why it was still Monday. Like, I had a week brain fog delay. And then I did my second podcast probably a couple hours later, same day, Monday. And I came out and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I remember thinking to myself, oh, the weekend's here. It's Friday. I this is my last 2 shows and I get to do the weekend. And then I'm like, wait, it's still fucking Monday.
You know, we should talk about the 4th dimension where there's no such thing as time. You're going into the 4th dimension now. And maybe if we're lucky, by the end of the show, we'll be at the 5th dimension, right? No time and space.
And then I came out of the third one. I'm like, why is it not Monday again? Why is it still today? This is fucking freaking me out. It took me like a day to realize I was living in like a week delay of fog, and then I came out of it, and it was like heaven. So anyway, so yeah, I've witnessed firsthand how important this is.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things I did want to bring you on the show and ask you about is I've been seeing this trend talking about menopause and perimenopause on TikTok, and it's really taking off and becoming a topic of what people are trying to, I don't know, they're trying to, all sell some coaching bullshit. Tell us about what's the realities of this and the truth behind medicine?
Well, the truth is that here at Homonify, we don't use terms that have no meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Perimenopause is a good one that we see a lot on the internet. Like they have these new definitions of what perimenopause is. Who cares? It doesn't matter what you call it. You measure hormone levels. This is like the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
The history of menopause is interesting because the original words menopause is pausing of your menses. And that was because in the 1850s, it was illegal for a doctor to touch a woman's genitalia, period.
Really?
Couldn't do an exam, didn't do pelvic exam, didn't do Papa Nicolau, didn't do anything. All that he was able to do was get a history. So have you had your period in the last year? No. Well, then you're menopausal. Go to the midwife. We'll get you some concoctions to treat you, period. That was 1850, almost 200 years ago. And they still use terms like that have no absolute scientific basis. So what we did was forget those terms. We use them because people use them. But on the other hand, premenopause, a 7-year-old girl is premenopausal. What does that mean?
That's true, I guess, when you think about it.
I have a patient, she's 60 years old. She comes in, she says, I'm perimenopausal. And she has no hormones. She's done. But she wants to be perimenopausal because if she's postmenopausal, she feels old. So therefore, there's a whole psychological concept that is being pushed by people who know nothing of what they speak. I know, welcome to the modern world of the internet.
Are you sure? Because the internet seems pretty factual.
Yeah, it is. It's where you look for facts. But I do think that I have an article in my newsletter. It said, what is menopause anyway? Because it doesn't mean anything to me or to us here at Homonify. We look at the objective, we look at the subjective, the history, we look at the objective information that is obtained through blood work, and then we formulate a plan, period. Who cares what you call it? It has no meaning except for maybe feeling touchy feeling sort of thing where I guess I'm premenopausal. Okay, if you want to be premenopausal, that's fine. But it doesn't mean anything from my perspective in terms of treating patients. Now, we treat hundreds of patients a week, and we have yet to have the need to use the word.
There you go. So if I understand you correctly, to clarify your point, it really is just case by case, individual by individual. What is your, age is a factor, and some other factors are probably
that's a good point.
But basically, when your hormones are fucked up, your hormones are fucked up by some sort of.
Well, we try not to put it in those terms, but I would just say if you're out of balance, the yin and yang is off. You need to be put, not just fix the hormones that are deficient, but also know the ratios of the 4 different hormones to work. And that's what took me 10 years to figure out. So getting back to your analogy about perimenopause, postmenopause, in the reality, though, is that I have patients who were told at 29 years old that they need to see a psychiatrist because they were having menopausal symptoms. They went to the psychiatrist, got put on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicine, whatever it was, sleeping pill, whatever it was, and didn't help. They just felt sluggish and drugged. They came to me. We got them off the medication. We checked them, and sure enough, they were having levels that are severely deficient called premature ovarian failure. So I just had a patient today who was told by 3 doctors that there's nothing wrong with her. This is the problem that we get in medical establishment today. They got 3 seconds to see the patient because they got to go ahead and get the $6.42 per patient. They don't want to deal with the issues. The patient says, this is happening to me, A, B, C, D, E, and they get lab work. It's normal. Goodbye. Where do they go? The next doctor or psychiatrist. That's the worst thing you can do. You know your body. There are things changing. It could be 28, 38. It could be whatever age it is. Own it, and then find someone who's going to know how to deal with it, as opposed to blowing you off and saying, it's fine, it's fine.
You're in the
to me, this is crazy in this age. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Every day I see it from intelligent doctors. You're fine. What does that mean? I'm feeling 9 symptoms, and that's not fine. Yeah.
So if I'm a woman or a man out there in the audience, and it sounds like you focus a lot on women, how do I know? Give me some ideas of how do I know if I'm having symptoms or if I'm just having a bad day
Well, there's 26 symptoms associated with female hormone imbalancing that we established. It's from increasing anxiety, depressive, moodiness, inability to deal with stress. We have hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, brain fog, fatigue. We have vaginal dryness, inability to have intercourse, inability to climax, sexual issues that come into play, both men and women, by the way.
I do that to most women when I meet them, though, and so that's not really menopause. That's just vaginal dryness.
It's Chris Voss. You have that effect on them, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm told. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tinder all day long.
The issue really is about how do you get through the nonsense. And I've learned over the years that what you have to do is throw out all of the nonsense and start from scratch. And that's what we did. So the program is very structured. I have rules and regs. I follow the guidelines, the American College of OBGYN, but I especially do not allow the patient's symptoms to go unnoticed. The laboratory testing is very important. We have extremely amount of ability today to measure almost anything. I mean, those that use porcelain toilets, we can measure your porcelain level, make sure you're not porcelain toxic, for example. Yeah, I just made that up, but it sounded good at the time.
Okay.
So
I was going to have that check because I'm kind of paranoid now. I didn't
believe me. Half the patients who hear it say, "Really? Oh, wow! I got to get my porcelain level checked."
A whole new TikTok channel you just created.
Exactly. But getting back to, I was just going to finish. Getting back to the fact that nutrition is very important, and all of this, men and women.
Wow.
Very important. Level 1, nutrition. Level 2, sex hormones. Level 3, adrenal gland. And level 4 is specific things that happen to the patient, including, believe it or not, the COVID vaccinations.
Really? Wow.
I've seen so many young, healthy people develop premature ovarian failure, premature testosterone deficiencies in young men, 20. And the commonality is multiple COVID vaccinations.
Really?
A lot. And the literature is full of infertility rising, tremendously.
Wow.
Spike protein was not a good thing.
There you go. Let me ask you this. One thing I know, so I have a vasectomy. And so one thing I noticed was a lot of my girlfriends that get with me, they can go off the pill. I'm cut. And so there's no risk.
Did they cut 1 or 2?
I don't know if they cut 1 or 2. They cut. That's all I know. And I wasn't around for it. I was asleep the whole time. I'd
make sure they cut both of them. Otherwise, every other you're going to be protected.
Well, I seem to have been fined for 40 years or something.
Yeah, they probably cut both. That's good. I'm just making sure.
22. Yeah.
All right.
I had lied and told them I had 4 kids, and in Utah that's pretty normal by 22. So
wow.
They believe me. But it's the best investment I ever made in my life. But one of the challenges they have is they'll go off their birth control and they really enjoy being off of it. They really love it. And it seems to balance them. And so, I might have a year relationship, a couple years, a few years relationships with them. And then after we break up, because I'm an asshole, everybody knows that. And it's always my fault because I'm a man. And so they lack of self-accountability. Excuse me, sorry, I had a cough there. And so they'll basically I'm just doing jokes. They basically will have to go back on it with the new boyfriend. And it fucks them up. Like they'll call and tell me, they're like, I'm really fucked up because I had to go back on the pill. And so it's really made me realize, how much that shit messes with their systems, that pill stuff.
Well, that's basically estrogen dominant therapy. So we have a lot of women who are by nature, by genetics, estrogen dominant, which means efficiency of progesterone, testosterone, too much estrogen. Those are the ones, unfortunately, that are at risk for breast cancer and uterine cancer, obesity, prediabetes, all those things. So what we have to do at Hormonify is we have to identify those patients at risk and be especially careful not to give them any estrogen sometimes. We measure them and we give them none, and they become balanced. They don't need any more. They're producing a lot in their body by genetics, and that happens a lot with women who are developing that what we call a pear-shaped body, where they become more broader on the bottom than on the top, and that is what's a sign of estrogen dominance. Then we have a condition called polycystic ovarian disease. Whoever's listening to the show, Chris, I'm sure some of them have that, and they're told to be on the birth control pill. Absolutely not. You can be on it for a short period of time, but more than 3 months, get you on the hormones you need, which is going to be progesterone mainly. Deficiency of progesterone causes a lot of the symptoms of estrogen dominance with PCOS patients.
Well, this is really good for women to know, because I've seen the, they go back on. I mean, like, I remember one of my girlfriend, I think she bled straight for 90 days or something. She had a period when she had to go back on the birth control. I was just like, oh my God, this stuff really must just.
Well,
really
we would have treated that differently. We would have treated her with the hormones that she needs to balance her hormones. It's all about yin and yang. It's all about the balancing. And I can see why you have a lot of girlfriends. I can see that.
Yeah. Something like so talk to us about your remedy. How do people work with you? Can they be anywhere in the nation? Do they have to come to your clinic? How do people
No, we have a tremendous staff. We have people that process everything by phone, we have secure video, HIPAA approved. We have in person. So we have an ability to take care of the patient anywhere in the world. So we have patients, I think now from 18 countries, 49 states. And I'll give you a bonus, Chris, if you can tell me which state we do not have one patient in. Maybe it's going to change after this podcast. Can you guess? One state. Otherwise, we have tons. Yeah, one state.
Alaska.
Correct.
Really? Wow,
you're the first guy who ever got it. That's fantastic. Alaska.
I was going to say Hawaii, but then I went with
No, we have tons in Hawaii. Alaska, we have no one. Good. I've never had anyone answer that. You're a smart guy. You don't appear that way, but you really are.
Why is that? I was thinking too, it's very small. There's a very small footprint.
I don't think women have hot flashes there or night sweats. I don't know.
Well, when it's, negative 100 degrees.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
You're not going to have night sweats.
And a lot of guys live alone in the woods, so maybe that's another reason.
That's another reason, yeah. Probably everyone lives, people are too busy being eaten by bears, I think, up there.
Right, I think that's
Alaska's a fine place. We don't mean to offend our northern friends.
Well, maybe now we'll I don't know if you have any listeners from Alaska, I don't know, but that would be it's a very interesting concept. But we see the level of education of the patient going up over time. In other words, if people really study what it is that goes on, that's the ones who come to see us. There's a lot of clinics that come and go near your area that are popping up and not popping up. Just for men out there, be very careful of those that are not part of the DEA registry, federal registry, because that means that they're not qualified to able to use your insurance to pay for your testosterone. And that is always a red flag, because in our Hormonify in our location all over the country, it is covered because we take insurances, because we are part of what's called the DEA Federal Registry. And that's very good to control and limit the abuse of testosterone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some friends that they did probably, I don't know, that abuse would be the right word, but they do their own thing, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
wink, wink.
It suppresses the adrenal gland. Long-term problems are severe. I
Really?
would say that's not for us. We don't do that because we have long-term patients. We have patients who are with us for 30 years. So we really don't want to overtreat, because that has other ramifications like suppressing your own production. So in our experience with men, over time, we reduce the testosterone by giving them a group of compounds called adaptogens, which are specifically helping the body produce and manifest its own testosterone levels. So if we have someone 4 or 5 years, their dose now is much lower than it was 4 or 5 years ago. So that's a good way. I don't say it goes to zero, but it can go quite substantially lower.
There you go. So people can telehealth into you. Is that correct then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then I see in your shop on your website, you've got a lot of different products and stuff like that. And then you guys make a specific gummy, if I understand it correctly. I forget the term that you use for it. And so people can basically get a customized cocktail from you.
Right. Well, the gummy, I don't know if you can see it well. It's a little, each of those squares is 1 day's dose.
Okay.
So even though our program is very, very rigid as far as the rules that we follow, our treatment regimen is extremely individualized, which means you have 4 groups of hormones. Imagine different levels of 4 groups of hormones put into the troche for you. Therefore, if you have to get a, let's say, FDA approval for that dosage, it would cost, probably $2 million each dosage. Multiply that by 1 million dosages. That's why, quote, this product is not FDA approved. Yeah, the dosage is not FDA approved, but the product itself is definitely FDA, not only regulated, over-regulated. We have to use the top quality, FDA approved raw materials in our lab. So therefore, the people who say, the academians who say, well, that's not FDA approved, insulin levels vary from 1/100th of a milliliter, milli-unit. And every single milli-unit dose of insulin is not FDA approved. But they don't want to apply that to this because of the pharmaceutical industry's lobby. But when you think about it, why isn't insulin different dosing? What's the study to show that this amount of units is effective and that amount of units is effective? Because it is allowed, grandfathered in, to allow insulin pumps to be used that change the dose all the time. Same thing with it's a hormone. Insulin's a hormone. So we can get into what how do you make a hormone? But the bottom line is that the individual dosing of our therapy is exactly the same as insulin is to diabetes.
You don't know how hard my comedic mind is trying to get over that, how to make a hormone joke, and not complete it. So I'll let people fill in the blank on that one. I know what we've established here is that there's no set rule on, okay, when you're in menopause and stuff like that, or hormone imbalance, and it's case by case, et cetera, et cetera. But is there an average age that people should look at right now of when you should at least get checked, even if you have symptoms?
I would say if you go on the website, you can see the symptomatology. If you have these symptoms and you're concerned, you should at least have your levels checked. And you need to have an expert, because you need to know when in your cycle, if you're a female, to have the levels checked. As men go, we have guys 22 years old calling up. They have no testosterone.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you cannot tell anymore. If you're having symptoms, don't believe your GP or your doctor to say, oh, you're fine. You're too young for XYZ. That just shows a mass ignorance. And I don't know if they're moronic or idiotic, but to me, this is a lack of understanding so big that you're getting this area filled with people who know absolutely nothing of what they speak. Completely phony baloney people that make up stuff. And for example, the pellet's a good example. Completely nonsensical in terms of how to treat a woman's lack of hormones by giving them male levels of testosterone. To me, that is not the way to go. It just makes no sense. And they have some serious complications. Serious.
I'll bet. If my adrenal glands went to shit while I didn't have enough free testosterone, will it come back with me?
Well, usually you need to have it measured, and based on the measurement, we need to know how to treat. We treat different types of DHEA for men and women to avoid the male side effects of DHEA stream. So we have an ability to avoid that with females, so that we go ahead and treat both, but we treat both differently.
Yeah. I've been on testosterone now for, I think, in a year and a half. It's changed my life. I mean,
absolutely.
I've been able to put on muscle. I've got double the muscle I used to have. I have less injuries. I have less back problems. I feel like I'm 35 again, and I don't have brain fog. It did do one thing that I was not happy about. I had my ADHD that I've had severely all my life had kind of fallen off, probably with the brain fog.
That may be the adrenal gland.
It came back like a motherfucker.
That may be the adrenal gland. Absolutely. I see a lot of ADHD. When you drain the adrenal gland, it gets worse.
Oh,
so
really?
Therefore, yes.
Those two are connected?
Yes, they are.
Damn it. That may explain everything. And
that may be it. You should have that checked.
All right.
Call my office. I'll take good care of you.
I definitely will. So what was the other question I had for you? So basically they can call you, they can see you, visit with you, find the.
Well, what I do, I have a whole team of practitioners who I trained, and what I do is I like to screen every single new patient, because I like to make sure we can help them before they either spend a dime or spend any time, because to me, some people we cannot help. I'd rather not waste the time of our staff and also of them to go through a system and then say we can't help you. So I screen pretty much everyone. That's what I do a lot of the day, is screening new patients, and we chat, we talk. That's the greatest part of my job, is I meet people from all over the world. Fascinating people, you know?
My last quick question for you. We've had people on and we've talked a lot about estrogenics, like parabens and different chemicals that are in soaps and different things like that. Even like, we have antidepressants coming back into our food system from like fish and other things.
Correct.
Is it true? I've been hearing that women have been having periods as young as 9 now. They're having them younger because there's so much of this estrogenics in our food and our soaps and all this sort
Absolutely.
of stuff. And same thing with men, where it's attacking.
Yes, absolutely. There is definitely a significant drop in sperm count in young men. There's a premature development with menstrual cycles in younger and younger women. They have earlier breast development, phalange. We see all of that. But most important is that it's much worse than you even think.
Really?
Yes, it's much worse. We see so many side effects of the chemicals that are in our water supply and our food supply. I'll give you an example. There was a chicken producer who used to go on television and say, held up a chicken, and he said, we don't inject our chickens with hormones. I don't know if you remember. I'm not going to mention who it was. It starts with a T. Anyway, guess what they were doing? They were putting the estrogen in the grain. So again, when you get down to it, we have a lot of marketing issues in this country that is not as present or prevalent as it is. Europe is much better controlled, much better regulated in terms of the estrogenics in our food supply. I'll just leave it at that, which is why they don't want to take a lot of our food, because they know it contains a lot of hormones.
Yeah. And it's crazy. I think some of the times they want hormones in food so they can get that dopamine hit that kind of is addictive.
No, I don't know if that's been proven, but I do know that it makes the chicken fatter. It makes, it does all sorts of good things for their bottom line. And you try to eat as much hormone-free food as you can. And basically, especially for women that are having estrogen dominance, you have to balance your hormones with the proper balancing of progesterone, testosterone, adrenal gland. And that makes you counteract some of the effects of the food supply. Because who can afford organic chicken hormone-free? It's like $10 a pound. That's crazy.
It's getting crazy now. That definitely is. I hear a lot of people tell me, I run huge dating groups of like 5,000 people, and menopause is a discussion because it's hard to date someone when they're in the throes of menopausal conditions. I've dated someone. I've gone on a date where someone has a hot flash in the car in the middle of winter, and you have to open all the windows and the air conditioning. It's a little hard to date people at that. I mean, my married friends, they're with their ride and die people all their life.
In my experience, one of the most common reasons women come in to see us is that their husbands or boyfriends tell them they can't have sex with them, and their vagina is so dry and it hurts. It's a terrible experience, and so intimacy becomes an issue. And women do want to be intimate with their person they love, so that is a very common issue. And of course, the men sometimes do encourage them to come in, but most of the time, that's a big issue. They just are so affected by lack of hormones, and the scare that is out there, which is false, that taking hormones, that's the capital H, is going to cause breast cancer. It's the opposite. If it's properly balanced, you can eliminate breast cancer risk way below the norm. So that is a scare tactic. It's not real.
I advise all men and women to look into this. I've seen, I've had girlfriends that don't track their period, and I have to track them for them. And I'm like, why is this my job? I'm like, you should be tracking it. It's important for your hormones, but it's important for guys to know this too. Like in my big dating groups, I have at least 2 women that have told me that they readily admit, they're self-accountable, that they destroyed their last marriage because they weren't balancing. They didn't even understand they were in menopause.
I have a divorce judge here in Palm Beach County in Florida who I take care of his wife, and he said I should send everyone to you as opposed to sending them to the 4-hour mandatory class they have, that they have to take. So, I would probably cure more. If you look at divorce statistics, there's a spike between women age 48 to 55.
Really?
And it's not coincidental. It's real.
Wow.
You see a lot of other spikes, by the way. Autoimmune disease. You see a spike with lupus, for example. You see a lot of interesting things that people are not dealing with because they don't know how to deal with it. I had to learn how to do it myself. And that's what makes Hormonify so special, because I created the formulations. People copy me all the time, but when there's a problem, they don't know which way to go. Do I go up here, go down here? So to me, this was why Hormonify is so successful, which is why I'm here to educate the American population so that we become better educated, can make better choices, and actually save money, avoid disease, live longer, live happier, more intimacy. It's all good.
I'm all for no more disease. I'm on that. You have me on board.
Yep, prevention. $1 you spend for prevention, you save $100 to the system.
There you go. Well, so tell people how they can onboard with you, what .coms they can go to find out more, et cetera, as we go out.
Well, hormonify.com is the place. I mean, we love the website. It's very educational based. You can put in a little information. We will contact you, set up a pre-consult, we call it, which is no charge, just to see how you're doing, what's your symptoms, what can we do to help you, and then we'll assign you to the proper nurse practitioner, or sometimes it's complicated, and I will be the one taking care of you. So it's a very personalized office. We have great staff. Everybody is wonderful, and they love what they do, and we're changing people's lives, and we hope that your listeners take the benefit of you and I's conversation.
There you go. And hopefully we educated some people and dispelled some stuff. We don't platform conspiracy and weirdness in here. We try and get the facts and the science.
That's right.
So I'm kind of weird that way. That's probably why we don't have as many listeners as some of the big podcasts, because they platform some craziness. But we try and get it right. And people should know this. I mean, I thought I was flying good with testosterone because I mean, everything was working in the bedroom, and, I've never been married all my life. I've been running around Las Vegas. So, I've been pretty active on purpose to make sure, my dad had prostate problems when he was, I think, 45, in his late 40s, but he was in 2 dead sexless marriages. So I don't know if conditioning helped, but, I'm 57. I don't seem to be having any inclination of problems. Or at least that's what my clinic is telling me. So, fun is fun. But this is stuff you need to get checked out, people. I mean, it is made, and I am surprised when I go into the clinics how young men are that are in there, even women. I'm just like, Jesus, wow. But that estrogenics thing is really interesting.
On the other hand, we have women coming in their 80s because they have osteoporosis, and we cure their osteoporosis.
Really?
If you look, yes, because they come in their 80s, their daughters bring them in, the doctors refer them, and they have osteoporosis. They can't take those poisons. And we cure them osteoporosis, they live 7 more years. So in other words, that's the key.
That's awesome.
Key is to understand the etiology of disease. And the questions you ask your doctor when they give you a medication is, if I take this medication, what is the outcome? Which means not just what happens with the bone scan. Will there be less fractures? So you got to ask the right questions. So if you have a question that you want to ask your doctor, call me. I'll tell you at least the right questions to ask, whether you should be taking those poisons or not. But the best thing is to be on no chronic medication, period. They're all poisons to some degree. That's what medicine is.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Okay.
There you go. And thanks, Surroundings, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss won the TikTokity and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.